Hey DJ, play that music.
Hello.
Hello.
It is another week. Hope everyone's doing well. Ari, how are you?
It's snowing.
It's always snowing here, I feel like. It's been so bad this year.
Yeah, it hasn't been this bad since like 2019.
Yeah, I know. I just feel like every day I've been going out and it's like I'm trying to go someplace and it's like just constantly snowing. So it's exhausting. But, that is the nature of Michigan in January. So, well, speaking of January, as of this recording, it is Wednesday, January 21st, 2026. So we are what? 4 weeks into January? We are 4 weeks into 2026. I guess with that thought in mind, how are we doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I feel like I'm staying on top of my New Year's resolutions,
That's
of
good.
working out and getting, staying on top of my. I'm still losing weight, and I'm working on my book, and I'm doing all the things.
That's good. I've kind of fallen off of my track for a while because the first week of school was last week and it was kind of stressful. So I stopped working out last week, but this week I am getting back into it. So sometimes we just got to grant ourselves grace and get back on like the track and do what we need to do, right? Whereas if this was like several years ago, I would have been so self-loathing about it. But now I'm just like, hey, sometimes we have levels, we have ebbs and flows.
Absolutely.
So maybe I think that's another one of my New Year's goals, granting grace more, which you know me, Ari. Have I ever done that before? No.
You're not good about that. You sometimes you get mad at yourself, or you get upset with yourself, and then like, yeah.
Me? Who are you talking about?
But I'm like that too. So it's because like the expectations are high, and it's like you want everything to be perfect, but perfection is the enemy of consistency.
Ooh, I like that. It's true though. It's absolutely true. That's probably why we get along so well because I mean, many reasons we get along so well, but we also are semi self-loathing of ourselves when we don't always meet the levels of success we think we should be meeting.
Right.
But it's like, what is success, right? Like why do we have these like lofty expectations of what that constitutes when it really should be just momentum,
Mhm.
right?
And that's what I really learned this last year doing 75 hard, is that you don't always have to go like hard and fast. Sometimes like doing a 45-minute walk, or doing just like a little something, is better than doing nothing.
Yeah. That's kind of been my philosophy like within this last week because like even though I've not been like going to the gym regularly or like maintaining diet, I've at least been trying to like get my step goal every day because like, like for me that's like a small win and it's like, okay, yeah, like at least there's still some trajectory that is discernible, right? So
Mhm.
no. So other than that, there's nothing has been new with me. I've been kind of well, I my aunt did pass away. That was kind of something
Oh,
really
I'm sorry
huge.
to hear
Yeah.
that.
And it happened, of course, like during the first week of school, so it was really tough. But my family, I think, was mentally prepared for it. And it is my aunt who was on casting seeds that passed away.
Oh, that aunt.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, so no, so I think she had a wonderful long life and I know that she enjoyed it and I think, you know, starting years with losses like this while also experiencing a dystopian hellscape, I've had my moments, but I'm feeling better now. Like I'm kind of on an upswing, which is a good thing. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
But
But
maybe
oh,
you
go
can
ahead.
just remember her and write about her.
Yeah. Well, I've already thought about I think I'm gonna add her to the dedication of the book. I think that's gonna be I think that would be it feels right to do that, right?
Yeah.
And the one thing that did come out of this is that family's been spending time together, and my family does not spend any time together. And I think this whole event was a shock to the system of like, we have so much lost time. Like, what are we doing? Kind of a thing. So
Yeah.
I'm hoping that as we continue forward, that energy still is there, like, of like, "Okay, hey, we do need to make time to spend together and do family things."
Well, that's good.
Yeah, are we ready for the mission statement?
Yes, it's your turn.
It is my turn. We live in a dynamic society where social media shapes us by creating greater opportunities for connection. It has led to a developing understanding of the adversity many marginalized communities face, the powers causing the adversity, and those who act as bystanders as atrocities take place in real time. Our goal with this show is to make connections and have challenging conversations about social topics, current events, pop culture, and art. Together, let's weave the threads of understanding with what privilege we have in order to learn, educate, and create in a world that's growing. Do you ever have moments where you feel like you haven't memorized the mission statement? Like,
Uh, nope, it feels fresh every time I hear it.
so that's the exact opposite for me. Because the other day I was driving in the car and I was like, I wonder if I can recite it. And I was like, we live in a dynamic society where social media shapes us. And I like did a whole soliloquy. I was like, wow,
But you recited it more than I have.
this is true. I didn't start letting you recite it until midway through what, season 3 or something? Season 4?
Yeah.
An atrocity in of its own right.
Oh, that's okay.
No, so but I really do think kind of like with the last episode, thinking about those words right now is very significant with what's been happening in the world. I think last time we had like the same realization that it feels like every single day in 2026 some new shenanigans seem to be occurring. In fact, I don't even think shenanigans is the proper word. Like atrocities are happening, right? So we do have a few things to get through in our current event snapshot. So what is the first thing that we got, Ari?
So there's there's snow in the Midwest right now, but apparently there is a huge snowstorm that's about to hit the South, and they're talking about like a snowstorm that people are going to talk about for the next few years, like a really bad snowstorm that's hitting the South. And the thing with the snowstorm that hits the South is that they don't have the infrastructure in order to deal with it. So
Mhm.
it's going to be like a really bad storm, and people are kind of like freaking out in the South right now because it's going to hit this weekend. So by the time this episode goes up, it's already going to have hit the South, and people are like going to be dealing with the after effects of that.
Yeah, I saw that too. It's kind of scary. Like, especially, I mean, like you were saying, the infrastructure thing, but like, I feel like because there's so much hardship right now, I think it's going to really affect a lot of people,
Yeah.
right? Economically, food wise. So, like, everyone just please be safe during the snowstorm. I've been seeing some weather reports that it might be tracking further north toward us now than it is south. So, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, because there's been so many budget cuts with like the National Weather Service, it's really difficult to gauge, accuracy these days with the weather. So that's a whole nother conversation for a whole nother day. But I really hope that everyone will be okay.
Yeah, and I'm really hoping that with I'm just hoping that people stay warm and safe because um, the thing about like with the weather with with infrastructure is that like the power grid could get knocked out and that people will be cold in their houses, and like I don't want anybody to like freeze to death and stuff, and like you hear about stuff like that and it's really sad, and it
Yeah.
makes me upset, because stuff like that is so preventable, and it just makes me so sad, and
Mhm.
I want people to be so safe, and to have options available to them.
Absolutely. No, I feel the exact same way. So hopefully maybe it won't be as severe as they're predicting, but we don't really know until it actually happens. So
Yeah.
so the next thing on the current event snapshot is purely self-indulgent of me. But there's a new Star Trek show out, everyone.
I heard about this. You were
I'm
talking about this.
I'm not being paid to talk about it by Paramount. I swear. I just am excited. No, so there's a new Star Trek out. It's called Starfleet Academy, and it is so good. It's so good. And I don't know, like I think they dropped the first two episodes last week, and I think last week was probably where I was at my lowest regarding like the state of the world, and I watched the show and I was like,
It's
I
good.
I watched it and I was just like, an optimistic human future. What is that? That is so refreshing. But people are calling it too woke.
Uh, I I was watching Entomology Nerd who talked about woke as being like a synonym for stupid left, and that the left is now coming up with words to that like a podcast called Chapo Trap House came up with a word for stupid right, which is called chud. That people are calling the stupid right like an emotional response to calling like people on the right the stupid right, because
Hmm.
remember like for a while we were using the word weird to explain stupid right,
Yeah. Hmm.
but it didn't have that like same effect as like woke has for like stupid left.
Right. Yeah.
So so apparently chud is like basement dwelling like incel stupid right.
Yeah. Well, no. So, and it's interesting because I was just reflecting on this earlier today. I really feel like the right has just tried to take over the word woke and wield it as an insult. And especially in the context of Star Trek, woke is not an insult. Star Trek has always been about being woke or being aware of the people in the world and the world around us, right? And acknowledging infinite diversity and infinite combinations. So for people to be like, Star Trek is too woke, you're kind of just I almost think of it as them being the butt of the joke when they say that because they're
It's like a self-owned, like, oh no, like because I'm politically aware and I care about other people, I'm a
yeah, it's
bad
like, oh,
person.
well, and the thing is like they're choosing to willfully be ignorant and cowardly about the fact that they live on a planet of 8 billion people who have different experiences than they have, right? And Star Trek has always been about creating representation to showcase those experiences and to showcase a community working together to make a better place, right?
Yeah.
So Star Trek is woke, and I wouldn't have it any other way. So anyway, what do we got next?
I
What's
like your
next?
candor.
Oh, thank you. I'm having a moment today where I'm just like I'm gonna just say it. I'm gonna say it as is.
So Trump has been kind of like moving towards Greenland, and he was at a summit, like an economic summit in abroad, and he called Greenland Iceland, and he's been talking about backing off tariffs, and he was talking about a lot of other stuff about how he was going to deal with homelessness and stuff, and then he was just being ridiculous because he was just being like
Chaotic,
belligerent.
chaotically belligerent. Yeah,
Yeah.
that sums it up, I'd say. Well, and it's dangerous though, like the rhetoric that we're seeing because like we're like he's literally threatening to annex a country, like a province in a country. That's
Yeah.
kind of unsettling, right? A NATO country, nonetheless, right? So I don't know. Like we are in some very odd times, but like, of course, seeing him go and like behave the way he's behaving, it just, I just feel like this chronic embarrassment because it's like this is a representation of our country, right? Like our leader is a reflection of who we've chosen to elect. So Yeah. Well,
I
in
mean,
more
par for the course.
yeah, I mean, in more interesting news, there is the first NASA mission scheduled that will go to the moon for the first time since what, 19 the early 70s?
Yeah. And that's scheduled in for a few weeks from now. So look forward to that.
It's interesting because I've not heard much about it. Like, I feel like it's not been discussed a lot, but it could be I've not noticed it either.
It's the Artemis mission. So they have their Airbus that has been built by Germany, and so they're going to the moon to. I think they're trying to talk about like habitating the moon. I'm not sure about that, but there was talk about a lunar hotel or something. I'm not sure, but they were talking
Interesting.
about but they were talking about going back to the moon.
A
But
lunar motel.
a hotel.
Interesting. Or hotel. Motel, hotel. Maybe it'll be a little quaint Schitt's Creek.
But they're going back to study the moon. They're talking about like putting people on the moon for like residency eventually, I
Interesting.
think. I think that's what they were talking about. I'm not sure exactly.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm surprised we've not gone to the moon since, frankly.
Well, it just hasn't been, important.
I guess. Yeah. But that's always exciting. Like I mean, anything astronomical makes me happy. So let's see how that goes.
I read a book where astronauts were going to the moon and it got turned into cheese.
What? What?
Yeah, it goes when the moon hits your eye.
Is that the title of the book?
Yes, it is.
I'll have to I'll have to check that out. It sounds so random.
And they said, "What kind of cheese?" And they people wanted to eat the moon cheese.
Oh my goodness. The things people write. I love it. Well, so we decided today to have like a mental health themed episode. We have quite a few things to talk about. I do want to provide a disclaimer first that Ari nor myself are therapists, nor are we doctors, nor do we have the credentials like to obviously talk in a hugely professional way about this stuff. We're just kind of reflecting based on our personal experiences and some of the research that we've done about certain things. And we're gonna be doing more disclaimers because we've been watching old episodes and we're like, wow, we didn't even put a disclaimer that we're not professionals in that field.
This is just our own opinions. If
Yeah,
you're, gonna seek out professional help, like definitely do that. Like these are just they're not attempt to like diagnose anybody or anything like
yeah.
that.
It's gonna mostly be focused on like our own mental health experiences. So today's episode is titled "Fight, Flight, Freeze, and Fawn," and I I think when we were developing the episodes for the season, like I quickly chimed in with this one because my mental health journey this past year has been interesting because well, it's been revealed to me that I really lean into one of these trauma responses because that's what they are. They're trauma responses. And I will share what one it is in a little bit. But I did want to define the trauma responses first. So, and if memory serves, I think in my research I was doing today, I think there's actually 6 of them, but we're focusing on the 4 main ones that I feel like are talked about the most. So, when it comes to fight as a trauma response, it essentially is responding to a threat by confronting it directly or standing up to it. Okay. There's flight, which is escaping or avoiding danger by physically removing yourself from a given situation. Okay. There is freeze, so becoming immobile or unable to act when faced with a threat. And then last but not least, this is the one that I am, fawn, trying to appease or please the threat to avoid conflict or harm.
For my research, I think it's important to talk about like what makes an event traumatic. So the DSM 4, I think we're on 5 though, but this is an old article that I was reading, defines trauma does delineate a wide range of events caused by PTSD, such as natural disasters, physical assaults, accidents, sudden deaths, and witnessing of death and violence. It is limited. It excludes events that do not involve injury of or death and events that do not experience intense fear, helplessness, or horror. That do
Hmm.
involve intense fear, helplessness, or horror.
Hmm. Yeah. No, that's important context, right? Because like each of these responses are a reflection of being exposed to one of those things or multiple of those things.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, going back to fawning, um, my therapist and I over the because it's been almost 6 years since I've started therapy with her. So she knows me so well. And a lot of my trauma is tied back to my maternal grandmother, who was very like verbally and sometimes physically abusive. And my therapist has been very quick to always point out the fact that I'm a people pleaser. I'm always trying to please people, and it's always like I'm always trying to do it as a means to, I don't know, like make them like me or make them happy or to distract them from being mad about me. In my delusional mind, sometimes like I will convince myself, especially when I'm manic or so, like I will convince myself that people are mad at me for no reason. So like I will overcompensate and go so far in like being nice that it almost feels performative. And in a way, it is kind of performative when you think about it. But what I'm doing is I'm fawning for them to try to appease or please them to avoid the threat of conflict or harm.
So does the people pleasing come from like a history of like a PTSD situation? Like you had like a specific event that you were responding to, and that you're now people pleasing because of like the fawning that you had to do in a survival type situation?
Exactly. Yes. So when I was a kid, like my grandma would periodically pick us up from school, and my grandma was always like really angry about something every time that she picked us up. So like it would involve like hours of her yelling at me, just like
Oh.
screaming and hollering and insulting me. And so like I would just like at first I would try to flee. What I would do is I would like flee to the bathroom. Like I'd be like, "Oh, I have to go to the bathroom." And then at a certain point when like she caught on to that, I wasn't allowed to go to the bathroom. And so like what I would do is I would try to like do acts of kindness or acts of service. Like I would clean. I would do things for her to deflect her from being like, "Oh, Donnie's a bad person" for no reason, right? And that sometimes would work. But at a certain point I realized that that kind of was the go-to thing that I would do subconsciously, like breathing, and it still manifests to this day. I mean, it's not as bad as it used to be, but like I mean, for example, Ari, if like I for some reason, and this is just a hypothetical situation, if I thought you were mad at me, I would like be messaging you. I'd be like, "Oh my God, is everything okay?" Like I would be kind of like hyper fixating on it and trying to like fix a situation that isn't there. Does
Oh.
that make sense? So,
Yeah.
yeah. So, suffice to say, I mean, 6 years into therapy, like sometimes you have moments where you're like, I think I know myself super well. But then you have a conversation like that where she kind of like frames it for me like, hey, Donnie, you are fawning for people to accept you, to carve space for you when those people should be doing it already and you shouldn't have to do that, right? You do that as a reflex of like a trauma reflex from many, many years ago. And that really was a game changer for me when I figured that out.
So in 2019, I saw an accident, like a car flip over, and
Mhm.
I jumped into action. Like I pulled over, and I tried to get this person out of the car, and I was like pulling on the door handle, and I was like trying as hard as I could to get this person out of the car. and I was in fight mode, like I
Mhm.
was trying as hard as I could. Um, I am a fighter. I am somebody who will constantly, when faced with horror, fight as hard as I can to fight against the horrors in front of me. Whether it's screaming, yelling, crying,
Mhm.
doing whatever, I'm a fighter through and through.
Mhm.
I don't know if I've talked about this with my therapist at all, but I'm just a person who is very action oriented. Um, I I will fight with my family. I will fight with other people. I get upset about things. I will blame people. I will do all sorts of things. Sometimes I make wild accusations. Sometimes because I just get so, and part of it's my bipolar disorder too,
Mhm.
that I get paranoid and I get delusional about things. But it's that, so some of it's like I have a hard time like distinguishing between reality and what I've made up in my head.
Mhm.
So, you know, and it's easy for me to get confused about a situation because and it pushed my sister away, honestly, because
Mhm.
I got so upset about a situation and that I fought with her and it pushed her away. And because she said something about a situation and I reacted in a certain way and it led down a path of fight mode
Mhm.
because I was feeling threatened and I didn't know how to respond to a situation properly.
Mhm. Interesting. No, like, so it's interesting because it that showcases that, like, so, like, that fear, like, that trauma response, like, just leads to different actions, right? So yours is fight, to stand up to the threat, and mine is to try to appease the threat, to, like, circumvent it in some way. No, it's just so fascinating how people's histories shape their responses to things,
Mhm.
and
It
I
used it
oh, go
used to
ahead.
be it used to be freeze mode. I used to depersonalize and, freeze, but
Mhm.
since 2019, I've been in fight mode. I've been more action oriented.
Right, right. No, so I feel like for me, I am always firmly in fawning. Like, I mean, I think depending on the situation, I do directly confront certain things, but if it's a situation where, like, I've been convinced, or at least I'm convincing myself that something is going on or something's wrong, like, I will find a way to try to decorate it with flowers to make it seem like it's okay. But I often think about, like, how other people perceive that behavior too, and I've had, some people, like, question my whether or not I'm being transparent, if that makes sense. So, like, I'll have people be like, "Donnie, like, is this really what you're feeling? Like, are you really happy about the situation, or are you, like, winning an Oscar and pretending to be happy in order to make someone else think that, 'Oh, I'm in a good place,' right?" And when I heard somebody else frame it that way, I'm just like, "Maybe is that the impression I give? Maybe I'm not realizing the impression that that gives when I'm just fawning for people," right? Because it can kind of make it seem like I'm being disingenuous,
Mhm.
right?
I've had to really confront it, that am I being fair to my family or am I being fair to other people? And I have to, check myself and check the facts about a situation and check the use DBT. Like, is this really what's happening in a situation? And should
Mhm,
I be upset about, am I valid in my feelings about what is happening in a situation? And should I be upset about this situation?
mhm, yeah. No, and so I often will have, like, these moments with my therapist where this is another fawning thing though. What I'll do is I will like convince myself that I am in fact the bad person, right? Because if I can't blame someone else, then it seems logical in my mind, like, oh, that it would be me at fault. And then my therapist will be like, Donnie, if you can ask yourself these questions and like self-reflect, like that usually means, oh, it comes back to like, I think we've talked about this before. Like, I will always be like, am I a narcissist? Like, am I a narcissistic person? And my therapist is always like, if you can even ask yourself that question, that means you're not like a narcissistic. We all have like narcissistic tendencies because it's a spectrum, right? Like I
Mhm.
feel like it's kind of indicative of the human experience, but like there are levels to it. And um my therapist is always just like, well, if you ask these salient questions of yourself, that means that you're self-reflecting, and a, a narcissist of a certain degree doesn't self-reflect because it shows them the way things truly are, right?
Mhm.
So, but no, like I do ask myself that. I kind of challenge myself sometimes where I'm just like, am I being fair to the people around me if I'm just kind of self-sabotaging all the time? Like, what responsibility does that place on them? Like, does that make them feel like they are responsible for like piecing me back together? Because that, like, the last thing I want is to seem like a broken person because I don't think I am. But certain behaviors can make other people think that that's how I perceive myself. Hopefully, I'm not talking in circles because I'm just like,
No,
I'm
I'm thinking
unpacking.
about what you're saying because so like how you perceive yourself, like in the sense that you're I'm totally blanking. You said something and it totally like went over my head because it was like really important.
No, I have these moments all the time where like I call them a wormhole. Like I'll go down a wormhole and I'll be like, "Ooh, I'm onto something." But then like my brain short circuits for a second and I'm like, "Wait, what?"
I lost it. It was there. But you were like your self-perception like plays into people pleasing. That you people please because you try to make ameliorate the situation like better.
Yes. Yes. And sometimes it can be such subtle moments too that kind of reflect that. Like so like and we can talk about this a little bit too, like because there are some subtle behaviors that we have that like showcase these fight, flight, freeze, or fawn reactions, right? So for me, one small thing that I do every day, and it drives Brit bananas, is I always have to kind of like give everyone like a list of what I've accomplished. Like I'll be like, "Oh, well, I did this, this, and this. I'm planning to do this, this, and this." And so I'm talking to my therapist about it. She's just like, "Well, when you were people pleasing and fawning to make your grandma happy, what were you doing?" And I was like, "Cleaning, accomplishing things, checking off a list."
Oh,
Right?
interesting.
And so she's like, "Well, now that's what you're still doing, right? You're still checking off a list because you feel like you need to convince people that you're being productive.
Oh, interesting.
When I could just keep the list to myself, I have to announce the list to demonstrate, hey, I am doing these things, right?"
So it's sort of like that part of that wrapped up in that fawning of like, give me a cookie, I'm doing good.
Kinda, yeah. Like, give me a cookie because that shows me that you're not mad at me
Hmm.
because I am only worthy of you being mad at me, kind of a thing.
It's kind of like I'm grandma's pet, I'm teacher's pet kind of thing.
And oh, I used to be a teacher's pet, trust me.
Yeah, me
Used to
too.
be. Well, okay, so for you, like, are there like any subtle, like, day-to-day things that like showcase that fight instinct? Or you also said freeze too. Sometimes you freeze.
I get politically heated about stuff. Like I'll see stuff online, and
Hmm.
I get politically heated about stuff. Like that's why I avoid all social media. Like I avoid the news. Like I tried to mitigate a lot of my fight stuff by like avoiding news. I meditate and
Hmm.
I avoid a lot of media because I will find myself like flaring up during the day with like intense anger. And like I'll get into situations and I'll just like find myself just like getting angry for no reason about
Mhm.
stupid, just like the dumbest stuff. Like I'll just get so pissed off during the day, like
Mhm.
about stupid stuff. I'll just I, I'll just go on like sometimes I'll just go on these like rants, and I should make vlogs about it. Just like just
I'd
ranting
eat
about
that. I'd eat that up.
ranting about stupid stuff that doesn't matter. I but it's just like I get so mad about dumb stuff, and I'm just like this does not matter.
Yeah. For me, that happens when when it comes down to like comments that I see. Like I know better than to do this. Like why would I go on Facebook under a local news station and look at an article and then read the comments
Oh my
under the
god.
article because you know it's Facebook. It's going to be a cesspool of comments. And I like sometimes I'll like get in my head where I'm like I have to be the person can like fighting back against this BS because like I guess that is the instance where I veer into like the fight mode, right? And then I realized, like, after doing it and after, like, bantering with some stranger for, like, an hour, I'm like, I just spent a lot of energy doing that. Why did I do that?"
Mhm. And I think that's you fighting against the people pleasing that you need to get in fights with strangers because it's sort of like you people please all day long. And so you have to get in fights with strangers as a way
Right.
of like letting off steam.
Yeah, I'm too afraid to fight with the people in my life, so we'll fight with a stranger.
Honestly, yeah.
But, yeah, so I really do you think that the time that we're living in exasperates some of these responses? Like, I would say so.
It does. Plus, the anonymity of the internet will like trigger some of my like fight responses. Like that sometimes I feel like it's personal that people are like targeting, like the algorithm like targets me and
Mhm,
like to make me angry and like make like tries to like whip me up into like an anger. And
mhm,
so I do everything I can to like I have I have my watch history turned off on YouTube so I don't get like targeted information at me to like try to make me angry because
right.
it's well known that algorithms are meant to whip you up into a frenzy and
Yeah,
like try to make you angry.
mhm. Especially on, like, YouTube and Facebook, because, like, I feel like those algorithms are kind of just the wild, wild west, if you know what I
Because
mean, like
it's supposed to keep you engaged, and it only can keep you engaged unless you're upset, you're fearful, or you're angry.
or if you're shocked, that's
Yeah,
another thing too. Like, I mean, we could go on forever about, like, the amount of shock content that we see. I also feel like AI has a role to play in all of that too. I you know, so random side note, but like, I have some family members who watch, like, reels, like, Facebook reels a lot. I don't really watch Facebook reels, but every reel they send me is literally AI.
oh my gosh.
And I'm just like so, like, I responded to somebody the other day, I was just like, "That is funny, but you realize that's AI, right?"
It's just slop.
Yeah, and they were like, "What?" I'm like, That's AI. Like, that is AI. Like, how do
I
you feel
know my
about
mom
that?"
goes on Facebook and I'm like, why does it show like Pat Sajak? Because it showed Pat Sajak in a bed and his wife was crying over his body, and it showed a car wreck. And I'm like, Pat Sajak isn't dead. I was like, why are you looking at that? She's like, oh, I try not to pay attention to that sort of stuff. And I'm like, Mom, there's so much misinformation on Facebook that you're looking at. And she was looking at a recipe and it had AI pictures for the cupcakes in the recipe that she was looking at. And I said, Mom, that's AI. And she was like, "No, it's not." And I said, "Yeah, that's AI."
And it just makes me, well, I mean, I don't think it's lost on us in realizing that the misinformation and disinformation out there has really warped a lot of people, right? I think that can honestly explain why things are the way they are in a way, or at least a variable in it. Um, and it I feel so conflicted because I do enjoy social media because I do think that it connects people. But I also like when you have powers that be, whether you're talking about billionaires or tech companies or whatever, like taking these algorithms and just inserting like AI stuff into it. It's just like, what is that doing? Like, what is that doing for people?
I think that it I think that, like, as a society, we're becoming more traumatized, and it's bringing out these trauma responses within us,
Hmm.
because it's keeping us latched onto our technology.
Yeah. And maybe this kind of falls in the category of freeze, but like I notice, especially like a lot of millennials, and I would say some Gen Z as well, probably Gen X too. But a lot of us, like, because there's been so much trauma that we've witnessed firsthand, that we've just kind of fallen into like this freeze or like this numbness to it, right? This desensitizing of it. I mean, think about it. Us, Ari, like in our lifetime, Columbine, 9/11, uh, numerous wars, the COVID-19 pandemic.
Well, it's
Um,
even, like, shooters, like, watching active shooters on, like, Twitter and Facebook where they have or, like, I remember being in Seattle and watching a live stream of a, guy who's, like, running people down during protests and stuff.
mhm. Yeah, yeah. And the fact that we have so much access to that, like, I feel like I just feel like it really can just exasperate these responses, right?
Mhm.
So,
I actually have a quote about the freeze response. Um,
yes.
Many animals neither flee nor fight when threatened. Instead, they freeze, either habitually or occasionally. Humans, too, sometimes become paralyzed, immobile, speechless, or incapable of making a decision in a crisis or following surprise. Perhaps shock, fainting, hysterical paralysis, and even catalepsy are extreme focusing forms of icing. And that's from
Interesting.
Robert Fry, Science News.
Interesting. By the way, everybody, like in the description section of this video, we'll have like our sources so you can like reference them because there's a lot of interesting reading. Like we read a bunch of interesting articles from a variety of different sources for this. But like I think it's important to realize that these responses are designed to help us protect ourselves in some way, right?
Mhm.
And I don't think we always realize that like we're in protection mode when we are fighting, fleeing, freezing, or fawning. So, granted, the degree in which we do those things can sometimes be brought into question and whether or not it affects people around us, like I just talked about, right? That can always be brought into question. But I think what really matters is like the opportunities we are allowed to work through those things, right?
Mhm.
And it's just so strange to think that in my late 30s at this point, like I'm still addressing these things that gave me like this need to fawn. And like it now I have words for it. When really back then I didn't have words for explaining what that feeling was.
I feel like that was a lot of things too, that, like, when you're younger, you don't have the language in order to articulate, like, what experiences you are going through, and that, like, therapy and other, like, information like, research gives you the language in order to fully, like, explain what it is you're experiencing. And even, like, when I wrote my book about my memoir about my bipolar,
Mhm.
like my manic episode, I didn't have the language in order to like explain what I was experiencing, that I was having a manic episode and that I was experiencing paranoia and delusions and all sorts of things. And you don't have that language or that vocabulary in order to explain what you're experiencing. It just sort of feels very like nebulous, and
Mm,
it can be very scary and like confusing, and it can feel very isolating, like you're the only one that experiences these things, and that nobody else experiences, like fight, flight, freeze, or fawn,
mhm.
or like like when you're in a traumatic experience, you feel like nobody else is ever experiencing anything like what you're experiencing. It feels like very isolating. And
Yeah,
so it's like you're not the only one that experiences those emotions or those feelings. It's just that at that moment, because you're experiencing it, it just feels like you're the only one.
right, right. It's interesting because I think depending on the circumstances, there is a certain level of shame surrounding it too. Like, I know for me, the whole fawning thing, like, someone was like, "You do realize like, you didn't realize you do that, Donnie?" And I was like, "What?" And it's because, like, because I've worked so hard on mental health, like, I feel like there's, like, this expectation of, like, I should know everything about myself, and it's like, no, like, that's like, I don't think it's possible to always know everything about oneself.
Right. And
So, I felt embarrassed at first. I was just like, "Oh, I maybe should I have known that?" It's like, "No, like, I didn't know that because I didn't have the words."
mhm.
Yeah, or the knowledge. That's why therapy's been so beneficial for me. It's because it's giving me that knowledge I didn't have before.
Well, and men think that a lot of men think that they don't have anything wrong with them, so that they don't think, like,
Mm, yeah, that's
so
true.
there's a lot of like denial, like, oh, that's for other people, and that nothing's wrong with me, and so I'm fine. And so, like, they
I'm
don't think
fine.
that they fit into any category, or that like they see, like, men see like horrors of war, and they see horrors of traumatic experiences, and they go off to these like workplaces that are not very safe, and they like go into factories and stuff, and they see like horrors, and they or they see horrors because they're more likely to see homelessness, or they don't they're taught to not experience their emotions in a rational way,
Mm, mhm. Yeah.
so they experience horrors in that way because they it gives them like that freeze response, and they don't experience those emotions in a normal rational way that other people do.
Yeah.
So it's that they think that that's just normal, like that's like regular, like
The
that's what you're
baseline,
supposed to be
yeah.
experiencing, or they fight it. They comes out in that fight response because the only men do experience emotions. It comes out in anger or violence or hatred, or you know um or some kind of erratic tendency, because men do experience emotions. It's just that it's the negative emotions, and like
Or it's
punching the wall.
internal or it's internalized, right? So, like, it just internal like, it's like a pot on the stove. You
Mhm.
internalize it so long, like, what is it gonna do?
Right. So it's just that it's like, yeah, we're talking about men here, but and so women are more likely to externalize those emotions, but men will internalize those emotions until they like boil over, and
Mhm.
then they'll ex- explode those emotions out and
Yeah.
have a response.
So, I mean, we have like 9 minutes left. I think it would be really interesting for us to explore the tools or exercises that we've learned ourselves in order to like regulate like these types of things.
Regulating. So there's they talk about I was reading about the polyvagal theory, which talks about like presence. There's a lot of talk about like presence when it comes to like trauma responses
Hmm.
and like using talking about the vagus nerve. So with like the polyvagal theory, because the vagus nerve runs through the body, and so what it does is like the stress response of the vagus nerve is like you're trying to like calm down the vagus nerve that runs through the body. So like trying to calm down and be present in the moment and um, be present within yourself
Hmm.
and keep the cortisol levels within the body low.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's interesting. And it's like, I know for me, I think a lot of it for me is like knowing how to regulate breathing to a way where I am able to kind of stabilize myself. Because, like, when it comes to fawning, like, I tend to internalize things and, like, really it has a very similar, like, seizing up feeling to freezing, but it's not quite the same because I'm still performing some actions of some sort, the fawning actions, right? But, like, my therapist is like, I box breathing doesn't work for me a lot, but, like, there's this other breathing she taught me where you, like, you breathe in, you're like, you hold it, and then you exhale for, like, 6 seconds, and you do that a few times, and that, like, really just kind of centers, like, it centers me and make like you were saying, making me feel present, like, I would say that that's the best description for it. Like it helps me feel more centered and present in the moment.
So when I was in the mental hospital, a lot of mindfulness present therapies that I was taught was the 5 4 3 2 1, which is 5 things you can see, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you can taste, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can like using all of your senses.
Mhm.
Um,
Interesting. So rooting you in the setting in a way.
right. So you look around and you see 5 things you can taste, you can see, 4 things you can hear, 3 things you can touch, 2 things you can taste, and 1 thing you can smell, or something like that.
Hmm. That's interesting. I've never tried that before. But that sounds like it would be very grounding
Hmm.
for sure. Another thing that I've done with my therapist is EFT tapping where like it's for me like especially with fawning like there's been a lot of conversation about like negative core beliefs and like how I can take those negative core beliefs and turn them into positive core beliefs about myself.
Yeah.
So like for fawning, like one of my negative core beliefs was like, oh, I'm unworthy of receiving like positive affirmation because I always assumed that people were mad at me because of,
Hmm.
those memories.
Yeah.
And so like part of the EFT tapping is like I would tap different points of my body while like reciting. Like, I would have a moment like, I would first recite, like, the insecurity, but then, like, halfway through the process while I'm doing, like, this regulated tapping, I then speak the opposite of, like, that negative core belief in order to kind of, feel I would begin by, like, saying, like, "I feel unworthy of receiving positive affirmation," right? But then, like, later on, like, I would be like, "I am worthy. Like, this is what I'm worthy of," right? And it's very stimulating.
That kind of sounds like a DBT thing that I do, which is check the facts. Like talked about that before,
Mm,
where you like think about um, think about a situation or think about the situation in front of you, and you like play out the scenario and like is it based in reality and like
Mhm.
reality check yourself.
Right.
I do a lot of
Interesting.
reality checking.
I call them come to Jesus moments for myself. Like I'm just like I need to come to Jesus about how I'm feeling about this particular thing that's like, am I being realistic about my emotions about this? Like, is it just, am I conflating the situation with something else or, or inflating my reaction to something? It's interesting how we have developed these tools to work through things. And I think like another thing that's helped me a lot is journaling. Like in like journaling instead of like, for example, like I said earlier, like I would list out like, oh, accomplishments. Like here's what I did so I can help myself feel better about being productive because I'm terrified of somebody thinking I'm not being productive. So
Hmm.
like what I would do now, like in a journal, like what I'll do is I'll just write an accomplishment list. And it's like, oh, okay, I did my laundry, check. I did this, check. And I don't feel like I have to report to somebody. I'm just kind of like checking in with myself.
Another polyvagal thing that I'll do before I meditate is that I'll stare out a window at like trees, or like I'll stare around my room and I'll ground myself in objects around my room, and like I'll look at the walls, I'll look at the floor, I'll look at the my paintings, I'll look at the trees outside, and I'll ground myself in those objects. Like I'll stare at them and I'll stare at the wall or I'll stare at the floor, and I'll ground myself in my present moment. Like this is where I am.
Mhm.
And I do it before I meditate, and then I meditate, and then I'm like present in my meditation. And then I come back from meditation and I'm like very down to earth grounded.
That sounds very comforting in a way.
It is, yeah.
Like, and it's interesting because I remember as a kid, I would really focus in on like watching trees all the time, and I wonder if that could be a way that I was like grounding myself like in
Mhm.
those moments. Like I remember I would just fixate so much on like the way trees would move in the wind, and I would like kind of get lost in it, but then I'd be like, wait, I feel better. Like I feel
That's something
better
you probably
now
were
that I.
doing naturally as a
Mhm.
way to as a as an automatic trauma response. You were probably like knew that you needed that, and it was probably something that you were doing automatically.
Mm. It's interesting what the subconscious does, isn't it?
Uh-huh.
This episode's been very like, ooh, like let's dive into the deep end of the pool of mental health. But I wouldn't have it any other way. I honestly wouldn't. And I really think like during these times, there is no shame in realizing that like things are difficult and that we do have like these instincts, but we do have tools at our disposal to, you know, keep us centered and grounded in the moment. Um, and it may not always be easy. It may not always be possible. It may not always be accessible for everyone too, right? But I think it's good to supply ourselves with that knowledge in some way. That's why, like, I know, like, at a certain point in my life, I really didn't think therapy would be very helpful for me. But now, like, looking back at it, I'm like, I couldn't have been more wrong because it's helped me develop these knowledge bases of like, okay, like, what can I do to help myself, kind of a thing, because I owe that to myself.
Yeah, and I know that therapy isn't always possible for everyone, but if you can afford it, it's worth it.
Yeah, for sure. And it may not be the perfect solution for everyone. It may not be the solution for everyone, but I think as long as you are, being mindful of yourself and prioritizing your well-being, like that's what matters most at the end,
Mhm.
right? So, well, I couldn't think of any better parting words for the evening. What about you?
I think so. I think this is good.
Well, everyone, so we did touch on media literacy here a little bit tonight. We will have a literal I think, trilogy of episodes coming about that in the near future. I think our next episode is going to be our Valentine's episode. So we always have a good time for that with that. So don't forget to subscribe to our channels. Subscribe to mine. Subscribe to Ari's channels. Ari Whipple. I cannot speak today. Ari Whipple Life and Ari Drinks Water. And then, of course, click like for that algorithm. And thank you for continuing to support our show. We love you. Have a good rest of your day, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.